What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about why I'm getting the casting of Frank Stone. This is a video series I do where I talk about an upcoming game and discuss whether I'm getting it or not. And this one, I want to put just like an asterisk next to it because I do plan on getting it. I'm just a little unsure of exactly when I would get it. I want to get it day one. I'm shooting to get it day one, but we'll kind of get there at the end of the video in terms of when the game releases and kind of the messiness that occurs there. But the game, I'm honestly pretty excited for. I've always given Supermassive tough love ever since Until Dawn. Until Dawn is one of it's probably my favorite horror game of all time, and also just kind of one of my all-time classics. I love that game. I think they did such a great job, and I don't think they've ever gotten close to matching Until Dawn. And so since then, I think they've told some pretty darn good stories. I think they've had some pretty darn good games. Nothing that matches it, but they've also been up and down. For every House of Ashes, which I really love, and even Man of Medan, I replayed last Halloween. I actually thought that game is much better nowadays than I remembered it being. But for every one of those, you got like The Devil in Me. I really did not like that game. The Quarry I thought was pretty darn solid. I didn't think it was amazing. Didn't think I was bad. Basically what I'm getting at is Supermassive, you're always kind of on a ride. They've kind of established themselves as like, what you're getting, like exactly what to expect, right? It just kind of depends on what the individual story and what the themes are, right? It's always going to be horror, but like, will they do kind of different types of horror? What will the story be? Are you going to kind of go towards, House of Ashes, more like almost alien type thing, right? Versus say The Devil in Me, which was more, do you want to play with supernatural / like a filmmaking type route? And this game, the casting of Frank Stone, kind of also a blend. It's got the Dead by Daylight influences in there, and I think hopefully that alone really puts the pressure on them where it's like, okay, you got to do this thing right, because I did not like The Devil in Me. Okay, so for me, they're kind of coming off an L, and I kind of want them to get back into the win category. I'm excited for the directive 80/20. Like I support pretty much anything that they do, but I'm always there to say, okay, maybe you could have done that a little bit better or that. But this game overall looks pretty darn good. In terms of the Dead by Daylight stuff, I generally like Dead by Daylight. I've been kind of out of the game for quite a while, but I have a deep, deep connection to that game that can never be lost. I played that game hundreds of hours, probably like 7 or so years ago. I played it, I think I probably stopped maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I kind of go back here and there, but very rarely. But it's always going to be a special game for me. I don't care about the lore too much, but you know what? I think the lore is a pretty good avenue to injecting it in this game. If you can tell a cool horror story with the choice-based decisions and saving versus not saving, right? Quick time events, all this jazz, the normal Supermassive formula. If you can inject a Dead by Daylight story, I think that would actually be pretty cool. So I'm definitely intrigued on the story department. They actually, so we've seen a couple trailers or a couple things like that. Before I record this video, is like, all right, by this point, normally we would see gameplay, and I haven't seen anything. Turns out, a little while ago, they actually did let people play the prologue. If you go online, and I'm sure I'll probably have clips of it playing even in this video, there's like a 30-minute clip of just the opening of the game. I watched it. I felt okay. I kind of just want to see, right? Because they've been gone for a little while. Directive 80/20 is going to show up at Gamescom, so like that might come out next year, but we haven't seen them in the longest maybe ever, maybe since Until Dawn to Man of Medan, that gap. It's been that long again. So, okay, how has that improved? Because so far, like recently, I should say, they've kind of fallen behind in the technology department. They were way ahead of the game with Until Dawn. That game still looks good, even without the remake, that's coming out, or remaster, whatever it is. But back then, it looked great. And, Man of Medan, and then you keep going, Little Hope. And as time went on, and as they started, I feel like, rushing and started releasing these games too quickly, the technology just has not been up to snuff. They've fallen behind on the facial features. The games, to me, like The Devil in Me had so many bugs and so many issues for me as a player. So that was something I was kind of interested in, right? Will this game have that? Because this game seems like they took their time with it a little bit more than what they've done previously. from the prologue, I mean, there's small things here and there. Like there's like clipping. I think there's a part where they pick up a picture and it kind of goes through the surface that it's on before he lifts it up. But honestly, it does look better. Like the lighting looks better. It looks a little bit more like vibrant, like with the colors. The faces look pretty okay. I feel like they changed just a little bit, almost the speed of which the camera switches back, like when they're talking. So like you know nowadays with when two characters go back and forth, right? The camera will sometimes have different angles, right? So that it's not it's not static. It's not just standing there. People want dynamic, kind of movement, and you can see that in it. So just it's 30 minutes, right? It's not too long. It might actually be like an eighth of the game that I actually just watched, but it does look improved. I mean, just visually how the game is performing, it just looks better. And you get the quick time events again. Seemingly they're mixing in different types of quick time events. So there'll be ones where it's like literally Dead by Daylight, like when you're trying to escape the killer, where the circle will go around, you have to tap it at the right time. They'll be literally tapping it. You got to fill a certain area before a certain point, and they'll mix those into an event. So again, it's the prologue, it's the opening. The rest of the game is going to be more of like the filmmaking, kind of an angle that we've seen in the trailers and stuff. But the game, to me, looks improved from what we've gotten just in the technology department. It's got my intrigue when it comes to the story, and the characters and stuff we just haven't really learned enough about for me to be like overly excited about it. But I want to give it a chance. And to end this video, just to quickly talk about the price and the release. Again, for me it's going to be different for somebody like you, but I like to throw these into all the videos. It comes out at a very packed time right now. The one thing I really like about it, and I think this is par for the course for the Dark Pictures anthology, it's cheaper. So it's actually only $39.99. I think it's $40. So it's $40. It's $50 if it's the deluxe edition. The issue, and the reason why we have to put that little star at the end, is comes out September 3rd. Now September 3rd, and really the end of August, beginning of September, might be the busiest period of these next 4 months, right? Because you got Black Myth, you got Star Wars Outlaws on September 3rd, you got the casting of Frank Stone and Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, and then 3 days later you have Astrobot, another 3 days later you have Space Marine 2, and I think another 3 days later you have Lollipop Chainsaw. Mix in Dead Rising, the remaster, mix in Epic Mickey's remake. September's packed. And specifically, the beginning of September, right, has like 5-6 games, all within, 2 weeks maybe of each other. You got like 6 games if you count Star Wars Outlaws even. So it's packed. The price, I think, helps it stand out. Granted, if you hear all the games that I'm throwing at you, right, they're all very different. The casting of Frank Stone, a pretty good amount of what you're getting there. And I mean, all of the games, like Astrobot, is a platformer, and the type of thing that is. Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, Star Wars Outlaws, open world Star Wars game, right? Like these games, and to be fair, they're all very, very different. So it's just, for me, like, selfishly, when I make these videos, we're kind of talking about, again, why I am getting the game or why I'm thinking about it. September is packed. That time is packed. While they're all different, I don't think I would get bored with the casting of Frank Stone. But when am I going to play it, right? I'm going to be coming off of Star Wars Outlaws, going into Quidditch, going into Astro. So I just don't know if I would get it on release. I want to, but I'm not 1,000% locked in. And even maybe like the length of time matters here, right? Like the Dark Pictures games, they're short. They're very short. And you come from an Until Dawn that's 7, 8, 9 hours long, and then you go into the Dark Pictures, their average is like 3 to 5 hours. They are not long games whatsoever, which, pro and con, like then you're saying, okay, well now it's $40, it's cheaper, but the game is like half the length of even what some would consider a smaller or shorter single-player game. Now you're spending $40, that's great, but you're spending it on a 4-hour game. There's replayability, there's couch co-op, right, where you can have the other person, all that jazz, and they've tried to have that replayability and just that value there in general, but that's something also to keep in mind, right? For me, selfishly, it's actually a pretty okay thing, because this is a game you can finish in like one. If you put in the 4 or 5 hours just in one day, you can finish this thing in one go. So that kind of helps it, because it's like, okay, I can play it, then move on and be done by Astro. By the time Astro comes out, I'll be right. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I'm like thinking about it in my head. And again, those are some of the things that like we know how these games work. We know that they're shorter. We know to kind of expect a little jank here and there. You kind of just have to go along with the story, see if it's a good story and good characters and all that stuff. The gameplay has really not evolved at all since Until Dawn. That's probably their biggest weakness. And they would just need to take so much time off to like reinvent the wheel in order to get something brand new. I just don't think you're going to get that with how fast that they move. And the Dark Pictures Anthology Season 2 coming out, right? Like, you just kind of have to accept. You don't have to like it. You just have to accept that, like, what these games are. You walk around, you pick up objects, you're talking to people, you choose your decisions, you do some quick time events, and that decides what happens in the game. That's the game. It's very little of that has changed since 2015. For 10 years, we've really been in that era. And again, you don't have to love that, but that's just what these games are. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.